Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Well, have you seen Godzilla King of the Monsters based off the weekend box office? Not many people have. In fact, according to Midnight's Edge's latest video, about half of the audience that showed up for the 2014 movie didn't bother to show up for this one. And that is really sad because it's not this movie's fault if half of the audience didn't like the last one. I was one of the people that didn't like the 2014 Godzilla. But as for this one, it's so good. It's so much better. I don't understand why people are still whinging that it cuts away from the monster fights. No, it doesn't. I mean, obviously, you can't have like a 25-minute long fight scene. This isn't Transformers. You have to cut away every now and then just so people can refresh their eyeballs. And yeah, I mean, some of the characters, the human characters, weren't the most charismatic ones ever, but let me tell you something. After all of the disappointment of the season 8 of Game of Thrones and all of the stress and the drama around Captain Marvel and all of the cringiness around the Terminator Dark Fate trailers, it was so refreshing and so enjoyable to just go and see a movie that was simply there to entertain me. It wasn't trying to shove a message down my throat or give me some kind of preachy sermons. It was simply there to entertain me. And it just felt good to see a movie that's like the movies we used to get, just there to entertain. There's so much more monster battles in this, so many more monsters. You can definitely see they really made an effort to respond to some of the constructive criticism of the 2014 Godzilla. That's why it's so disappointing to see the low box office numbers, but I am reminded of what I said after the 2014 Godzilla came out. I said that considering that the audience was somewhat mixed on the response to that, if they want to build a monster universe, they really need a solid hit, something to knock it out of the park. And that's why I said they should forget about King of the Monsters, they should forget about Rodan, Mothra, Ghidorah, and they should instead just go straight to what everybody wants to see, which is Godzilla vs. King Kong. And my logic was, if you go to the average man on the street, I'm not talking about your hardcore Godzilla fans, but your average Joe Blow on the streets, and your average Joe Blow knows Godzilla, but doesn't really know Mothra, Ghidorah, Rodan. Those names don't mean anything to them, but they do know the name King Kong. And the fact that this movie has underperformed in the way that it has, whereas Kong Skull Island actually did surprisingly well, I feel vindicated in that opinion. I don't think they should have made this movie. They should have just jumped straight to the dope, straight to what everybody wants, which is Godzilla vs. King Kong, so that we can see that, get everyone back on board, and then you can build your monster universe. It's a sad thing when there's this carryover effect from movies that because the last movie sucked, people don't see the next one, even though the next one might be really good, and even though the next movie will fix a lot of the problems. I mean, we've seen that happen with Star Trek. Star Trek Beyond fixed a lot of the problems that was in Star Trek Into Darkness, but people still didn't show up to see Star Trek Beyond. X-Men First Class, one of the best X-Men movies we've ever got, really suffered because it came right after this abomination. So it's sad to see Godzilla falling into that same trap because there's a lot of potential here. And I've noticed some people as the dust is settling, kind of saying, well, maybe Godzilla is just not the kind of thing that's ever going to fly with Western audiences. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. I mean, yes, the Japanese movies, as far as I can tell, they're centered more around like the main characters are the monsters and the interactions between them, and quite often the humans just stay out of the battle entirely. And yes, there isn't really something like that in the Western world, but that is not a point against it. That's actually a point in its favor. There was never anything like the MCU before the MCU built it, so I think the Monsterverse does have promise. And I'm glad that at least they already have filmed Godzilla vs. King Kong, so we definitely are going to see that. That's the movie that I've really been wanting to see ever since the 2014 Godzilla. That's the one I'm really interested in. It's a shame we've had to wait all this time. They could have just gone straight to it, as I've said, but anyway, I won't labor the point. I keep talking about that. But at least we will get to see these two square off, and even if it tanks, at least we get to see it, so that's good. But I would like to see this Monsterverse succeed. It could give us some really interesting things. I've made this comparison before in a different video, but if Fast and the Furious can take several movies to sort of pluck out the things that work and flush away the things that don't work in order to produce something that people really like around the world, why can't we do it with this as well? So if you haven't yet seen Godzilla King of the Monsters and you're thinking about it but you're not sure, my advice to you is go and see it. Go and see it. I mean, really, what else are you gonna see? I mean, are you gonna see Aladdin? Why? You've already seen it. You already know it's not gonna be as good as the animated one. Why spend your money on that? What else are you gonna see? You're gonna see Dark Phoenix when it comes out, like next week or whenever it is? Why? Why? You've already seen it. You know it's not going to be any better than X-Men 3. But this, I'm telling you, this is an improvement over the 2014 Godzilla. It's certainly not perfect. I'm not saying that. It's certainly perfect, but it's a good popcorn movie. If you just want to be entertained in a movie like the good old days when that was all movies were for, this is a movie that you can see and just really enjoy yourself, as I did. It knows what it is and it knows what it isn't, and you get the bang for your buck. You do get all these monster battles. So go out and show your support for this movie. I am Bandit, this is Bandit Incorporated. Until next time, I will see you guys in the comments.